Morning class, we are going to continue on in Unit 10, Lesson number 7. This is on composition of transformations. Basically, we're going to look at a combination of a reflection, translation, etc. So let's begin. I'm going to do the guided practice number 1 through 6. So number 1 and 2 I have written on the board. We have a triangle CDE, and the vertice C is at -5, -1, D is at -2, -5, and E is at -1, -1. And the first problem says draw that triangle after a translation of 4 units to the right and 0 units up, and reflection across the x-axis. So the first thing I want to do is draw an x and y plane. So C is at -5, -1, right here. C is right there. D is at -2, -5. And E is at -1, -1. So we have this triangle. So it wants us to translate it 4 units to the right. So what I want to do is, I guess I'll write it underneath. If we have E prime, if we do 4 units to the right, we're going to have -1 plus 4, comma 0. So that's going to give us 3, 0. And then for D prime, if we go -2 plus 4, comma -5 plus 0, sorry, this is going to be -1 plus 0, so that's going to be -1. So we're going to have 3, -1 for E, and then over here we're going to have for D prime, 4 minus 2 is 2, -5 plus 0 is -5, and then for C prime, we're going to have -5 plus 4, so that's going to be -1, -1. So essentially here are our new coordinates once we translate it over to the right 4 units. So C is going to go over 4 units, so that's going to be at -1, -1. So here's our C prime. Our E prime is going to count over 4 units, so that's going to be at 3, -1, and our D prime is going to be at 2, -5. So right here, this is our E prime, and this is our C prime. So we have this triangle shifted over now, and now it wants a reflection across the x-axis. So the x-axis is right here. I'm just going to draw a line of reflection, just a dashed line right here. What I could do is just take the axis, and I'm going to just erase little hash marks to show you there's a line of reflection. So now I take this triangle after it's shifted over to the right 4 units, and I'm going to have E as 1 away from the x-axis, so now its new point, E double prime, is going to be 1 above it. So since it was at 3, -1, it's going to be at 3, 1. And our D prime, since it's at 2, -5, it's going to be reflected, so it's going to be basically, instead of at 2, -5, when we reflect it across the x-axis, it's going to be at 2, 5. And then our E, or our C prime, Since it's at negative 1, 1, it's going to be at 1, 1. So now we have our final reflection. And so we have E double prime, D double prime, and then C double prime. So this is our final solution. So we could put D double primes at 2, 5, E double primes at 3, 1, and C double primes at negative 1, 1. So our final solution is this top triangle. Again, we took all of the points and we first translated it to the right 4 units, and then we reflected it across the x-axis like a mirror image. All right, so we're going to do the same thing now for the next one. I'm going to erase this portion underneath the coordinates so that we can use that space. All right, so again, we're going to draw an x and y coordinate system, just like this. So for, again, C is going to be at negative 5, negative 1. Our D is going to be at 2, or negative 2, negative 5. And our E is at negative 1, 1. Negative 1, negative 1, right there. All right, so we're going to shift it over 6 units to up, because it's 0 units to horizontally to the right or left, and then 6 units in the positive direction. So C is going to go, we're going to go negative 5 plus 0, and then 6 minus 1, or minus 1 plus 6. I'll just do it that way. Minus 1 plus 6. So C prime is now going to be at negative 5, 5. And we're going to do that for D as well. We're going to have negative 2 plus 0, and then negative 5 plus 6. So our D prime is going to be at negative 2, 1. And lastly, E is going to be at negative 1 plus 0, and then negative 1 plus 6. So it's going to be at E prime is going to be at negative 1, 5. And it makes sense now, because all we're going to do is take C and shift it up 6 units. So we're going to be at negative 5, 5. So like right about here. Our E prime is going to go up again, and it's going to be the same thing. We're going to be at 0, or negative 1, negative 5. And then D is going to go up basically 6 units, so it's going to be at negative 1, negative 2, 1, sorry, right here. And now this is our triangle shifted up 6 units. All right, now the last thing is we're going to reflect it across the y-axis. So what that means is the line of reflection is going to be on the y-axis, so I'm just drawing little hash marks because erasing it, because if you have a dashed line, it means it's a line of reflection. So if E is 1 away, if E is 1 away from the line of reflection, we're going to go over 1. And then since C is over 5 units, we're going to now have C is going to be at 5, 5. So E double prime is at, instead of negative 1, 5, it's at 1, 5. And C double prime, it means that a prime means it's one transformation, either reflection, translation, rotation. Double prime means we made a composition of transformations. So we did a translation, we moved it up 6 units, and we reflected it over the y-axis. That's why we have the double prime, is that's what it means after a series of 2 transformations. And then, so basically C double prime, again, is going to be at 5, 5. And then lastly, our D is going to be at basically 2, 1, our D double prime. And now we have our final triangle. So it's this one right here is our final solution. I kind of drew it in just so you knew. And then over here, for problem 1, I just shaded the other triangle. So that is problem 1 and 2. A student just texted me saying they need help. So I'm going to help them real quick, and then I will continue on with problem 3, 4, 5, and 6.